What's up, guys? Welcome back to Huddle the Hardwood. Today we have a sad episode to film. Our season is officially over, and my name is Jacob.
My name is Holden, and as of we are recording this, UConn has already made the Final Four on a crazy shot, probably one of the craziest shots I've seen in March Madness history. You guys have already know what happened up to that point because we're going to be obviously relate to recording this just because we needed some time to decompress and Jake is on vacation. So, but we're a couple days behind getting this video out, but we have our reasons for coping, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, coming off a rough 67-63 loss to UConn. I guess just my general thoughts real quick. Like, obviously, we'll talk about just the normal stuff we talk about. We'll give some of our general thoughts. We'll kind of go player by player from the Michigan State side and how they did, and then we'll just get into our positives and our negatives. I, for one, say that I have more negatives than positives, um, but yeah, just some of my general thoughts. Ugly game, ugly game. Really, that first 10 minutes, we were terrible, awful, got down 19 really fast. But then surprisingly enough, since that 25-6 start, we outscored UConn 38-19. While on that 38-19 run, we eventually took the lead 45-44. It was really that first 10 minutes that we played terrible. And then, in my opinion, I think we outplayed them for the next 30 minutes. But that first 10 minutes really just put us into a deep hole that we just couldn't dig ourselves out of. And then, like we previewed, we really wanted to stop Caravan and Terrace Reed, and they were both their leading scorers in this game. They kind of were a problem early on and throughout the game. And a guy like Solo Ball, who was struggling, was hitting his threes today. And very early, they started off the game 5 of 6 from three. Um, and yeah, just terrible start. Seen that happen a lot this season. Just couldn't crawl ourselves back. And yeah, Jake, what are some of your just general thoughts from the game?
Yeah, I mean, the first thought, I guess, is a neutral thought, I will say. I just think like I'm sad to see Carson and Jackson go. They were a lot of fun to watch, and it was amazing to watch Carson's career develop the way it did. I remember
Both of them,
watching,
honestly, both
yeah,
of
I
them.
mean, but like I'm gonna highlight Carson specifically here because I mean I just remember watching him when he was like a freshman or sophomore and was maybe playing like 6 minutes a game and 6 to 10 minutes a game and he couldn't even catch the ball. I remember being so mad that he was in because he was just an offensive liability because he just had butterfingers to watching him be that to being one of the best defenders in the Big Ten, and you just throw the ball within a million feet of the hoop, and Carson's gonna catch it and slam it home for the Koopa Loop. So I it was I really enjoyed watching his career go the way it did, and moving on to Jackson, I also enjoyed watching him play going from his freshman year, which I believe he was hurt for, and just carrying that energy and hard work through his sophomore season, junior season, senior season. It was really nice to see his career turn out like the way it did, and I'm just sad for them that it ended on such a terrible game, and the fact that out of any Spartans in Spartan history, think arguably I would say they were the players that probably deserved a Final Four the most out of everyone that didn't get a chance to do it. And we've had a lot of great players through this program, but especially in this day and age, you don't see loyal players like that anymore, especially ones that progressed the way they did. And their hard work, unfortunately, did not pay off, and I'm sad for them.
Yeah, one thing I will say before you move on is those two in particular, they really felt like they brought back that what it meant, like that Spartan
Like a
mentality,
tough
what it meant
spot.
to be, that what it meant to be a Spartan. Because like that like patch between like the patch in between them coming in and like Cassius leaving, where we had like the Aaron Henry, Gabe Brown, and AJ Hogard and all those guys, like they were like decent teams and all that kind of stuff, but they never had like that Spartan toughness. They never had that love for one another and just like work ethic. They just there was always something going on behind the scenes, and it was just like the chemistry wasn't there. But these last 2 years, when the Carson and Jackson's junior year, and obviously you got guys like Fears and Cohen and stuff like that, but the chemistry has just been through the roof. With like the team has been super close, and that showed on the basketball court, and it brought the team together. They worked hard together. Like everything, you can just see it how connected they were on the court, and I think they're going to be missed a lot when it comes to that. Just with this last 2 years, they were a big part of making it how special it was.
Yeah. So uh I have the same thoughts. We were kind of a program that hadn't have a good big in years. And even going to just 2 years ago, it felt like I remember you and I had these conversations where it's like we were listing all these great bigs Michigan State has, and we just hadn't seen that in a while. It was really nice to watch them develop our culture back to what it needed to be and set the right standard for the younger guys, and hopefully they can continue on this tradition if they decide to stay as loyal as they did. But yeah, so I guess those are my well, I guess one of the biggest things I have for the negatives before we jump into positive negatives and box score and all that. But the one thing I want to highlight is we had a 12-minute scoring drought in total in the game. So we in the 40-minute game, we were only active for what, 28 of it. And it's really, really sad to see that. You'll never win a game like that ever, ever, ever. It doesn't matter who you're playing or what level of competition. If you can't score in 12 minutes, you're never going to win. And it's absolutely ridiculous to me that a Division One program is not able to score the basketball in 12 minutes. And I understand there's runs and I understand like all the logistics of basketball, but 12 minutes is just absolutely sad. And I'm really frustrated with it. And if we were recording this the day of the game, my words would be a lot less nice than they are right now. But I just really don't understand why we just couldn't score for 12 minutes total. And yeah, I don't know, super frustrating to me.
Yeah. I guess we can go ahead and get into uh, just some of the box score stuff and kind of talk about player performances individually. Um, Oddly enough, how much of a game we kind of how much it seemed we struggled this game. Our big four, our starters, they all had double digits together, so they all played relatively well. There's one that I think played the worst, but we'll get to that. We'll start with the guy who I think had the best overall game, or one of, but we'll start with Koopa Loop. He had 14 points and 7 rebounds. I just think this game he was between him and Jackson. I think they wanted it more. I think they had more, obviously, motivation to want it more, just it being potentially their last game in the Spartan uniform. But I think uh, Carson was I just had a great game overall. I think when it was getting to that second half, when we started to really build our comeback and play a lot better in the second half, he was the one getting those buckets. He had, he was getting to his favorite turnaround little post midi um, and he had a couple of dunks here and there. He had one or two like really nice dunks in the second half. And then obviously Terrence Reed ended up I think with 20 points, but for the most part he was playing really good defense on them. There's also something that we'll get to later with some of my positives and negatives, but overall I think Coop had a really good game. And I think towards the end of I'd say like the back 15 to 20% of the season who finished his career out in Michigan State very strongly, and I'm proud of him for it. He was one of our more consistent guys down the stretch.
Yeah, I think Coop went out on a high note for his MSU career, and I know if I'm not mistaken, I believe you were the one that told me this, but I think Jackson and Cooper are some of the most winningest players in Michigan State history. Um, so it just sucks that it didn't show in the tournament. But overall, I thought Cooper had a great game. I really hated the matchup of him on Caravan for a lot of the game.
Oh,
But what I will say is I was pleasantly surprised with how he played Caravan. I know Caravan had 17 points, but I felt like most of his points were either like miscommunication or they weren't on Cooper. There was definitely a few on Cooper, don't get me wrong, but a lot of Caravan came alive in the second half. Cooper did a pretty good job. Besides giving him, I think he gave up the very first three of the game to
yeah,
Caravan.
right when the game opened
Yeah,
up, I'm like, what are we doing? Like he just
yeah,
had, yeah, Caravan got like 4 feet of separation, had the easiest three of his life. I was like, what
yeah.
are we doing?
But I believe he only had like five first half points or something after that. Or so he had five total and he only gave up a bucket to Caravan later that time. But I thought he played, I was pleasantly surprised with how he played against Caravan. And yeah, he also when he switched on to Reed, he was able to shut him down on the boards. But yeah, overall, I thought Cooper had a great game.
Move on to Cohen. He had 13 points. I think he played pretty well too. He was aggressive. He had when we were in progress of taking the lead and kind of going back and forth with it. He made a couple of big plays in a row. I think he had one or two and ones down the stretch and a couple of tough buckets that I can't remember the ones in particular, but I know a couple of his buckets. It caused me and you to stand up and do like a chest bump or whatever. I think one of the times where we took the lead, just going energy. He was providing that energy. I think defensively, I was really upset that he didn't spend time on Caravan. He followed Solo Ball around a lot, and Solo Ball hit some tough shots throughout the game. Was actually finding his 3-point shot early, but most of that was like early on. But um, he didn't have like as good as games as he had like in the first two tournament games. But I mean, I think is like in the tournament. I think he's averaging like 15 points or something like that. So overall, good tournament for him. He came up big for us in some big moments throughout the tournament. But overall, I'm pleased with him. I don't think he had a dunky dunk in this game. I don't think he had a dunk. I could be wrong, but kind of
Mm.
sad that we didn't finish the season with a cool Cohen Carr highlight. But overall, I
Yeah.
thought he played well.
Um, yeah, I thought Cohen had a good game. I thought he kind of started off a little timid and then he started picking it up there later in the game. It's just those timid starts I really don't like, especially with how physical he is and knowing he can get a bucket whenever he wants. It kind of sucked that it took so long for him to get there. But yeah, forgot what I was gonna say. But yeah, I mean, I think he shot the ball well. I really am upset that we didn't get to watch him on Caravan. I thought he would have possibly been the best matchup for Caravan. Um, yeah, I feel like I'll get into it a little bit more later, which it's not really his fault. I thought he did all he could with what he was given. So,
Then we'll get into um, Jackson Kohler had 12 points, 8 rebounds, almost had a double double. I was actually very surprised how well Jackson played in this game. I think he was also one of the better players in this game. We were kind of talking about before this game how nervous we were to see how much Jackson was going to be involved in this game, just because it just matchup wise, we did not think it was going to work out too well. I think he spent most of his game on Terrace Reed.
mhm.
Terrace Reed did end up getting some pretty easy looks on him. But Jackson also had in some possessions that I remember he was holding his own and did pretty well. And then he did a good job on the offensive end. I don't think he might have hit 1 3, but he also was making some nice moves in the post. I think he had also an and one himself
Mhm.
that helped us take the lead. But I think he was pretty good on the offensive end and he was good on the boards. He was contributing to a lot of offensive rebounds, which I'll get into later. We just couldn't convert on the offensive rebounds, but for the most part, he did really good on the glass, and we did as a whole. But don't think it was obviously Jackson's best game. Obviously, the matchup wasn't really there for him, but I don't think he had like a bad game where he should feel bad that he didn't like go out on like a good note or anything because he didn't play bad by any means. But Yeah, Jackson played good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessary. I do think Jackson, for the most part, had a solid last game. Definitely don't think it's the game he wanted to go out on. I mean, he didn't shoot the ball the greatest. He was 4 for 10, only 1 for 4 from three. Excuse me. He had 8 rebounds, which was pretty good. He held Terrace Reed for the most part pretty good. He only gave up 5 boards to Terrace Reed. I do think there was points in the game where Terrace Reed was absolutely bullying Jackson, and I just really didn't like the matchup for Jackson. And I feel like it kind of he did play a lot better than I thought he would, like we were talking about. However, unfortunately, I do think he hurt the team by being out there because it didn't just on the defensive end. On the offensive end, I thought he did fine. He didn't shoot the ball necessarily well, but he still contributed some, unlike some of our other people. But he yeah, I mean, it kind of caused us to have to put Carson on Caravan, and I would have rather seen Carson on Terrace Reed and Cohen switch over, and maybe Jordan Scott on solo ball. Like I would have rather those matchups been had and sub Cooper and Jackson in for each other. But I thought with the time he was given and the 30 minutes he played, I thought he played fine, and I thought it was a good game, I guess, to go out on for him.
The last one I kind of written down here is Jeremy Fears, who I think had the worst game out of these four. Um, 13 points, 7 assists. That looks good in the box score, but shot 5 of 15, had 4 turnovers and 4 fouls. Um, I think overall he just was not, he did not necessarily show up to play. He kind of, I don't want to say he folded in the moment or anything like that, but this is a game where we needed him to play his best. He's been playing good the last couple of tournament games, but he wasn't like putting up those scoring numbers that we've seen early on in the season. But he didn't really need to in the first couple of games because we were moving the ball and we were functioning as an offense. But when we're in a game where our offense is struggling, I need to see him be a lot more assertive himself. I think he took a lot of his shots later in the second half, but it felt like in the first half we were just, I mean, we know, I mean, our offense in that first 10 minutes, it was just so incredibly stagnant. We weren't moving anywhere. Guys didn't want to shoot. Like in moments like that, when our offense is struggling, I need to see Jeremy Fears take control of it and be assertive to try and score and take efficient shots. And there was 2 plays that I remembered that he absolutely blew. There was one where he made a nice split in between 2 defenders right down the lane, had an easy little finger roll, and then he just went and didn't use the backboard, and he completely blew a wide open layup. And then he had one where I think he just took it down like the right side, and he would have had a nice open layup, but then no one touched him. I think he was like halfway going up for a dunk or something like that, and didn't get high enough, and then he just lost the ball and just lost control of it. A couple of times, a couple of dumb fouls, a couple of times where he dribbled off his leg, turned it over. Just I don't know. I think I feel bad for Harp like for hounding on him so much because I mean we're still nothing without him. Or we'd be terrible without like his presence on the floor. Like the offense has to move through him and nobody else, or else we struggle. But it's just like since the ball's got to be in his hands all the time, when he messes up, it's that much more noticeable. And when the ball's in his hands all the time, it's noticeable when he's not being aggressive and when we need him to be aggressive and he doesn't. But I don't know. I just think it was not the greatest showing for him to end the season, and it was a spot where we really needed him to show up.
Yeah, I thought Jeremy had a absolutely terrible game. The turnovers finally caught up to him, and like you were saying, dribbling off his leg, there was stuff that I didn't really see him do, and I saw this in different podcasts that he brought up, and it was just like more specifically, the time we're kind of referring to is when he was on a fast break and went behind the back trying to split defenders behind the back, which he hasn't done
Oh,
these.
yep, I remember that.
Because like when he goes to split, he like uses his body and like pushes the ball forward and then goes and catches up to the ball. And he tried to do it behind the back and then he just dribbled it off of his leg or someone else's leg. It was just a really bad play, and it was in
It
a
was a
time.
crucial moment
It
too.
was in a
Like it
time,
was
yeah, a very crucial moment. It was in a time when we were down like 2 or four, and I'm gonna get into that in my negatives a little bit. But yeah, and then we saw once again we had a big game and he shot terrible. He took 15 shots, only making five of them. And we just can't have our best player doing that. And I also saw so many different times where he was just dribbling, waiting for the offense to happen. And unfortunately, he doesn't have the luxury to do that. We don't run a UConn type offense where the point guard can just sit up there and dribble and wait for stuff to happen. They're all waiting on him. They're all waiting for him to make the play for them, which is unfair to Jeremy, but it's the situation we're in. And he stepped up to that role all year. And unfortunately, he did not step up to that role tonight, or I guess a couple days ago. And it was really frustrating. And I do hope he comes back this year. I know there's rumors he'll enter the transfer portal, but there was also those rumors last year as well. Um, do I think he will? I hope not. I think the chances are low, but they're never zero because we saw what happened with Trey. But we'll get into that in a different video. But I I hope that wasn't the last game in a Spartan uniform for him because that would have been a very upsetting way to watch him leave. So yeah, and then there is one player, if you don't mind, I would like to touch on. Um, and we've been consistently talking about this player being the X factor, and that's Kurt Tang. I thought he played absolutely terrible. Um, he had 0 points, 0 for 3 from three in 20 minutes of play. I I think this is more on Coach Izzo than it is Kerr. Because why isn't Trey playing? Trey's the one that's been hot for the tournament. Trey, in 6 minutes, contributed 4 points, 1 for 3 shooting.
He only played 6 minutes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so for a player that's been our X factor in the past couple games, because it's always been a bench player that was going to be the X factor in whether we won or lost. And for the last couple games, it's been Trey. So in the biggest game of the year, when our biggest thing is we can't score specifically, like I mentioned, 12 minutes of offense. Why aren't we putting someone in the game that can hit shots and hit shots when you need them to in an efficient manner? So I think it's absolutely ridiculous that Kurt Tang took 20 minutes of time from Trey Fort. Trey Fort should have
Yeah, and
absolutely been
then
in
I
the game.
mean, I don't want to make it sound like I agree with what you're saying. I also don't want to make it sound like Kerr is not someone who can come in and hit shots because he's done that for us on many
Yeah,
occasions where he was that guy. But at the same time, you Trey played 6 minutes, scored 4 points. Kerr played 20 and only got three shots up. Like I would be like it's even worse that he had 0 points, but you're out there for 20 minutes and you somehow only found a way to get three shots up when we're
yeah.
struggling to score. Like
And
let's get some attempts up there and to see if
yeah.
we
It's
can
like you're
actually.
saying, like, I'm not necessarily saying Kirk can't do it because, like you said, we see him do it. It's more so of the fact that he didn't do it this game. And 20 minutes is a big sample size to be able to tell. You know, within the first 5, 10 minutes of the game if he's got it or not. There's no reason to keep him out there just to do cardio. Like, I'm sorry, he's just going out there running up and down 3 shots in 20 minutes. Like, are we serious right now? And it's like you see Trey Fort, who's showing production, and it's like get Trey out there. Like he's shown the past couple games, he's shown up. Kurt Tang hasn't shown up the past couple games, and it's like if he hits a couple shots, great. If not, replace his minutes with Trey. And I was really disappointed with how I would say I'm 40% disappointed with Kurt Tang on that and 60% upset with the coaching staff with that because you got to be able to recognize that our shooter doesn't have it going and try a different shooter to get in the rotation because Trey was able to get up and find 3 shots in 6 minutes and he was only able to get 3 shots up in 20. So I don't know. I just wanted to touch on that before we get into the 30-second clip of our positives and then moving on to the negatives. But anyways.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a good point. I didn't really notice that. I guess I was too busy being mad at everything else. But yeah, so I guess we can move into our positives and negatives. I have, like I said earlier, I got two positives on here, and then the rest are negatives. So the two positives I have on here um, is just our overall rebounding and our offensive rebounding. We beat them on the glass. We out rebounded them like we have done many teams this season. Got a lot of offensive rebounds. But one thing that I'll flip that into a negative is that in the beginning of the game in particular, we were just getting offensive rebound after offensive rebound. This is when we had that like 8, 9, 10 minute stretch of not scoring or whatever it was in the first half, and we got down 25-6. We were getting shots up and then getting like 1 to 2 shots of possession. We just still could not put the ball in the bucket. I remember I think to start the game we had like 6 to 7 offensive rebounds, and we only got two second chance points off of it, but that wasn't a bucket. That was just two separate free throws. Like the best we were able to get off those offensive rebounds were two fouls, but we were only able to go one of two both times at the free throw line. So I just turned a positive into a negative. That's how depressing this game was. But then my only other positive that I had was um, for I'd say about 25 minutes of the game after that first 10 to 15 minutes where we started horrible. I think our defense played very well because I mean we outscored them for the rest of the game by 15. If we just don't go down by 19, we win this game by double digits. Like we think after that first 10 minutes when they God forbid they started 5 for 6 from three. Like they just could not miss to start the game. That was a mixture of them just hitting tough shots, and then that was just a mixture of bad defense because we also had a couple of times where we overplayed the three, and then they were making backdoor cuts, and it was just wide open for just easy passes. I just turned another positive into a negative, but first, like just to say, first 10-15 minutes terrible defense. I think the rest of the game we played very good defense, and that's what contributed to us being able to come back. But just the whole man, we just cannot keep digging ourselves a hole. But those are my two positives. What do you got?
Yeah, so my one of my positives is pretty similar to yours. It's both positive and a negative. Our offensive rebounds was insane. We had 13 total offensive rebounds. Um, Unheard of, to be honest. And like you said, we got 4, 5, 6 of them in one possession in the beginning of the game, and we just kept like getting them and getting them and getting them. And I'm not going to go into the negatives, but. The other positive, yeah, I mean, I agree. Defense was a big positive for us. I mean, we held UConn to 67 points. But yeah, I mean, that's this UConn team, to put in perspective for you. They scored 73 against Duke, who's been consistently rated like the number one defense all year. Put up 73 against UCLA, 82 against Furman. Like this is a team that can score the basketball at a high rate, and we held them to under 70 points. So I think that is something to be proud of. And because our offense didn't show up, doesn't mean that we can't look at how good our defense played besides that first like
And
5 minutes.
that was with questionable and disagreeable matchups, how they were playing defensively, but they still found a way to get stops and stuff. So,
Yeah. Yeah, not too many positives in my opinion. So that's all I got.
well, I'll let you just go ahead and just keep going and go into some of your negatives, and I can get to
Right.
mine.
So my first negative is gonna be one that is gonna hurt for some of us Spartan fans, but we gotta do some self-reflecting here. I said in the preview that this game is going to come down to coaching. I said that I thought that both teams were equally talented. And when you have two teams like that that are equal, it comes down to coaching. And Coach Izzo got outcoached today. It's just flat out and simple. Uh, I thought, yeah, I mean, like the matchups that we had today, they weren't, I mean, yes, like you said, we did play good, but they just weren't agreeable matchups. And I think that we would have gotten a better opportunity if we went a little smaller and put like a Trey Ford in. And that's another thing like we already talked about earlier. Like I thought the minutes were kind of off. And Yeah, I just thought there was a lot of subbing errors today. I thought there was a lot of matchup errors. I thought that our offensive scheme was just not there. Um, and I mean, we adjusted well. That's one thing Coach Izzo does really well is adjust, and we did adjust in the second half. But it's like he needs to find a way to get these guys going to start off the game. Like um, we cannot start these games down 25-6. Like you said, we would have won this game if we didn't. Um, and I guess that's gonna go to my next thing is digging ourselves into a hole. I I mean, I don't really have much more to say from that, but we dug ourselves like we just consistently do that. You'll never win a game with this. Um, sorry, I'm deleting some of these as I go on. But yeah, I mean, Dan Hurley, he was calling timeouts at the right times. He had the right matchups. He had the right offensive schemes. He was able to tell his players where to go and lead them in the right direction. And I just felt like yeah, it was just all around out coaching. And one of my other negatives is once in the second half when we were within 2 points, we were within 2 points for like 5 minutes straight. That's definitely a little bit of over exaggeration, but it's pretty close. It was probably like 3 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. But
So
it
that
was,
feels like an eternity when it's that close, that late in the game, last game
yeah,
of your season. Like those are crucial moments.
it was, yeah, it was unfortunate because if you could just be a competent basketball team and go get a basket in a 5 minute span, you're winning this game. Like how we were on a pretty good run and then we just kept trading stops, not even trading buckets, just trading stops. So it was just like a bunch of crappy offense. And I was pretty disappointed with that because it wasn't like the first half where we came out slow. Like we were on a run and we were literally within reach because the score you were mentioning, we took the lead at 45 to 44. Point I'm talking about is when UConn had 51 and we had 49. That was like that for a long time. And it just sucks because that's when our offense stopped moving completely. And yeah, so I was pretty upset with that. Um, and then the last thing I will say is I just don't think this team was built to have like a deep run in March. Uh, Unfortunately, our backup point guard got hurt midway through the season, which hurt us. We also didn't have a consistent go-to scorer. I mean, Jeremy had a stretch of doing really well, but ultimately his game is not a sustained winning environment or whatever because like I mean he can get all the assists he wants and stat pad all he wants but it's like at the end of the day if you don't have a player that when the going gets tough that you can just give the ball to go get a bucket because all they got to do is like all the defenses has to do is what UConn did to us spread out deny everyone and let Jeremy dribble. I mean because like how is Jeremy going to create offense because his way of scoring is creating for others because once he creates for others he'll go get his. And I think it could be a good brand of basketball, but you got to have a threat out there as well that can just go get a buck whenever he wants. And that's the final thing I'm going to say about my negatives, is that we just, as much as it hurts to say, we just did not have the roster to be able to make a deep run this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying with the whole losing Divine really hurts, and losing a guy even before the season even started, like Caleb Glenn. I think he would have been our best transfer. Even with Divine playing pretty well this season, I think Caleb Glenn would have been a huge difference maker for us. And he would have been honestly, if we had Caleb Glenn this game, he's probably running around and chasing Alex Caravan. He probably would have matched up with Caravan perfectly in this game, but just didn't have the opportunity to see that. Um, a lot of my negatives are kind of redundant compared, like just you touched on a lot of the stuff that I had, just with the bad start, getting down 25-6. I mean, we've probably gotten down double digits in the first half, probably at least 5, 6 times this season, where it just drives me crazy because we get down so much so early in the game. But yes, there's a lot of time left in the game, but then it gets to a point where you like you're down. You have to play perfect basketball to get yourself back in this game, and you got to have no mistakes. Then when you finally get to a point where, like we were talking about, you get to that 45 to 44 after being down 25 to 6, you go on a huge run, take the lead finally, then that's when you start to run out a little bit of gas because you're going 120%. It's not like you're sitting there and you can be relatively comfortable holding the lead a little bit, slowing everything down. Like you got to be going, moving like this every possession. You got to be on all your P's and Q's. And then it gets to a point, like we said, we finally took the lead, and then that's where it slowed down again. And then we just could not buy a bucket because I think we just started to run out of gas a little bit. We couldn't capitalize on shots. Like it just gets to a point, and especially, like you might be able to get away with it. Like we were able to get away with it against like a Rutgers. We weren't able to get away with it against Minnesota and stuff like that. But you're not going to get away with a 25 to 6 bad start against teams like UConn and a team that's now, as of recording this, gone to 3 of the last Final Fours and has a chance to win 3 of the last 4 national championships. You're just not. It's not sustainable whatsoever to get down to a start like that. And I pray to the Lord that we do not have this problem next year because that lost us at least half of our games that we lost this year was just because we got down so fast so quickly that it was just impossible to come back from. Um, so that's my biggest thing from this game. And then just overall bad shooting, just terrible efficiency. We I think shot below 40% as a whole, maybe right around like a little above that, but we only made 4 threes this game. We shot 25% from three, could not buy a bucket from the outside when we need it and in games where we have to come back. But no, we had to get all of our points from the free throw line and inside the arc. So it was all just tough bucket after tough bucket. We could not get the outside shot going. Nor did we attempt that many. Like I said, we only attempted 16. So we just weren't confident enough to put them up and we didn't make them. So just really struggled shooting. And that just goes into my next thing, just terrible offensively. Got to a point well, at the beginning of the game, weren't moving around. Like you said, they were denying Jeremy a lot, just letting him do everything. Um, and guys were just waiting on Jeremy to, create. And when everyone's denied and he can't, and I don't know. I mean, it's redundant, but just terrible offensively. Rough game for Fears in total. Um, and then, like we already touched on multiple times, just very questionable matchups. I didn't agree with them. They pretty much strayed away from everything that we talked about in our preview, um, but yeah, just a really overall sad ending to our season. Really wish it could have gone a different way. I think if we have a somewhat decent start to this game, I think we win this game. Like we outscored them by 15 since the 25 to 6. Like we beat them. We played better than them for the majority of the game. It's just that start we couldn't get back from.
Yeah.
But
Even if we
um
hold that 12-minute total scoring drought, if we reduce that to hold on. Okay. Well, I guess I'm gonna finish out the episode. But even if we finish that 12-minute scoring drought and push it to 8 minutes, which is still bad, we win that game. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this episode up because my timer is gonna run out. But thank you guys for watching, and we hope to be farther next year. So go green.